Hey, what's going on, my friends? Hiker Dave here. How are you? I want to talk about a subject that uh, that made me think. I was watching Bigfoot Odyssey, one of his live feeds. Bigfoot Odyssey has a great channel, you guys. If you're not aware of it, go check it out. Trust me, you won't be disappointed. But he was talking about Sasquatch having the ability, being self-aware, and the power of discernment and reasoning, having the ability to reason, self-awareness, and stuff like that. And I agree. I'm like, yeah, absolutely, right. But I gave it some thought, and I spent the day yesterday studying up on this, on on self-awareness and reasoning and cognitive thought and these things, right? And I'm like, well, I know what all that means, and I realized I kind of didn't know. I mean, being self-aware and being aware of what you're doing. I mean, I know what that means, and to think, I thought, well, do just humans possess that? The ability to reason and things like this, and being self-aware and stuff like that. And I found out a lot of this is theory and and philosophy. I spent all day. I have never spent this much time on preparations for a video. I realized the information out there. I just went to the Google machine. I did a lot of research on this yesterday, and also again this morning I got up to try to kind of button up and put an end to what this video will be. And I was shocked at the information out there and how much of it is not scientific. So first thing I did, right, was to look up the actual definition of what these things mean, because Kerry was talking about Sasquatch having the ability to reason and discern. And I completely agree with that. And I questioned myself. I'm like, well, what am I agreeing to? Wait. So let's go through some of this, and maybe I can enlighten some of you as well. I'm not a scientist or a philosopher, so I had to look all this stuff up. I kind of thought I knew what I was talking about. I thought I would know what I'm going to talk about until I looked into it. So I looked up discern, right? To make out or pick out distinguish something. You can discern it. This is a word for recognizing and perceiving things, being able to see or hear something. So the power of discernment is the ability to obtain sharp perceptions, or to judge well in the case of judgment. Discernment can be psychological or moral in nature. I didn't know that. I do now. So I looked up reasoning, the action of thinking about something in a logical, sensible way. To have reason, to think and understand and form one's judgment by a process of logic. To calculate, conclude, reckon, to think, consider, judge, deduce, infer, surmise, or informally to figure out. To find an answer to a problem by considering various possible solutions. To work out or find an answer or a solution. To think it through. To come to a conclusion about it. To sort it out and make sense of, or get to the bottom of it. So I looked into being self-aware. Self-aware is a conscious knowledge of one's own character, feelings, motives, and desire. Self-awareness is the ability to recognize oneself as an individual and separate from the environment and other individuals. So I was looking up some of this stuff, and I'm like, I want facts. I want scientific stuff on this. And please, if there's someone out there who is well-versed in this, Feel free to comment, but please don't shoot me down as an idiot. This is stuff that I just I spent the whole day looking this stuff up, and I found it very difficult, if it is out there at all, to find scientific proof on any of this. So I read an article that was written by psychologist Shelley Duvall and Robert Wickland in 1972. This is theory again. When we focus our attention on ourselves, we evaluate and compare our current behavior to our internal standards and values. We become self-conscious. Self-conscious as objective evaluators of ourselves. The ability to monitor our inner world, our thoughts and emotions as they arise, beyond just accumulating about ourselves. You know, and I'm like, well, do animals, right? Do other animals besides humans have the ability to plan and reason? I believe they do. But I believe it's to certain degrees, right? I think that a human has a much more ability to deduce or to plan and to reason more than a fish. You know what I mean? Or a dog, or a deer, or a raccoon, a squirrel, a rabbit. I'm not saying that that these animals or fish don't have the ability to plan and reason. I just think that they're at such different degrees that there's kind of a chain there. So I was amazed at the information out there, that a lot of it's above my head as far as philosophy and stuff like that. So I spent the day yesterday studying these concepts, and I found that a lot of it is theory and philosophy. No real scientific way to prove self-awareness, to prove cognitive thought, to prove reasoning and discernment. So I found this example. A bird, or I'm not sure, I'm going to get a comment from Tom Talker, I think, is the bird guy. I think if I'm wrong, I'm sorry, and I apologize. But a bird will not eat a monarch butterfly because it got sick the last time it did that. So the monarch butterfly feeds off of nectar that is kind of poisonous to birds. So does the butterfly know why it's not eating the monarch? I'm sorry, does the bird understand why it's not eating this monarch butterfly? Does it know why it got sick? Does it remember that after eating the butterfly, it got ill? So does the bird discern that the butterfly is poisonous, or does it merely remember and associate being sick with that particular type of butterfly, the monarch butterfly? So the bird knows not to eat it, but I don't believe the bird understands why. It just knows, I'm not eating that again the last time I got sick, and it knows when it sees a monarch butterfly to leave it be. Here's another example. A hunting dog following the scent of a rabbit down a trail, right? The dog comes to a three-way split. It comes to a trail to the left, center, and to the right. The dog puts its nose to the ground following the scent and comes to these three trails. So it checks the trail on the left by putting its nose to the ground, checks that trail, no scent of the rabbit. The dog comes back to the center trail with its nose to the ground, checks it for scent, no scent. The dog will automatically, this is an example, the hunting dog will take that trail to the right without putting its nose to the ground. So does the dog calculate, or just merely figure out, does it reason that, well, if it wasn't down the trail on the left and it's not down the trail to the center, it's got to be to the trail on the right? I find that very interesting. Did it calculate or deduct that it must have been the trail on the right? Kind of like this was my own thing, like a child too, touching a hot stove. You can say it and say it and say it, but until the child touches it, that child will most likely probably never touch a hot stove again. Does that child understand that that stove that the child got burnt because the stove was turned on and a heating coil heated up. It doesn't understand how the stove was heated up, but it knows when I touched it, it hurt. There was another example too. Chimpanzees, right? Let's see. I want to write this down. So, in Africa, there was a group of chimps that was studied that became nocturnal because of civil unrest in the country, and soldiers were eating them. This group of chimpanzees changed their entire way of life and became nocturnal when they were not prior to that, to not get killed off and hunted. Were the chimps aware, self-aware? I believe they were. They changed their entire lifestyle to avoid being captured. They were self-aware of their surroundings and what was going on. You know, I think that there are degrees of dissent in reasoning and being self-aware and cognitive thought in many animals, but to varying degrees. I think I said that already. Chimps, for instance, chimpanzees are a 98.6 match DNA for humans. That's an incredible, amazing statistic. I knew that we were close to chimps, but not 1.4% away. That was amazing to me. And chimps make tools, and they have, I don't know how in the recent past this was discovered, but they were making tools and spears. They would take a stick and shove it in the ground and bore out a hole in an anthill. Put that stick down, pick up a smaller twig, and fish down the hole. They called it fishing. These researchers, they used two tools to get to their objective, which was to eat the termites off of the stick. Also, in the recent past, I don't know how in the recent past, I don't remember, I didn't write it down, that chimps were making tools. They were grabbing branches off of a tree and sharpening the tip by eating off some of the bark at the end of the stick and using it to hunt bush babies. They're small little monkeys. Now, there's something to be said about like a learning curve, right? So with humans I'm trying not to get off topic. There's so much information running around in my head with this whole thing. I watched a lot of stuff too on this, that the evolution of the chimp seems to be stuck on a launching pad where we as humans have already lifted off and we keep on improving on existing ideas. So, for instance, a chimpanzee can teach its younger one how to use a stone as an anvil, right, to crush a nut or something like that, or a conch shell, or I'm not even sure, but as an anvil, like a tool. Well, that particular chimp saw a generation before doing it, and so on and so on. They never improve on an existing idea. Now, with humans, each generation says, oh, that's a great idea, but maybe we can think of a better way or an easier way or a cheaper way. So we constantly improve on an existing idea, where chimps just have never taken that next step. You know, they'll always be using that rock to crack that nut, or things like this. But it's interesting to see that in maybe the past 50 years or whatnot, that they have now started to use these tool kits. Again, with the chimp making the hole in the ground with a stick, finding a smaller stick and using it to fish, and making spears to hunt these bush babies. That is something I don't know if they were observed doing that years and years ago. So maybe they possibly are making small advancements, and maybe this is a stepping stone to them, becoming more intelligent. I don't know about that, but my mind is kind of blown. My mind is tired because of this, but I do believe in Kerry's theory that I think Sasquatch has a higher level of discernment and reasoning and self-awareness than any other creature besides humans. Maybe, and I believe that their self-awareness in their surroundings and in their environment far surpasses humans. Once we step out into their realm, so to speak, or their habitat, we are like little children. We don't know a fraction, I believe, of how self-aware Sasquatch is in their environment. And I think that it was when Kerry had spoke about that, I was just, all these questions went through my head. I ended up grabbing an envelope and just started writing down on an envelope. Just all of a sudden, all these things were flooding into my mind. I'm like, I gotta look into this. I gotta look into it. And that's kind of what I come up with, guys. I could have kept on going with this video and made it a lot longer, but a lot of it is philosophy writings and psychiatrists' writings on the workings of discernment and cognitive thought and things like that. That I really thought I could get I could get answers from it and relay it to those who are interested. I couldn't. There's nothing really to grasp onto, any kind of proof. But I do believe, man, that they are much better at this, being aware of their surroundings and their environment than we ever could be, unless unless for generations you spent up in the mountains or out in the forest and you started to maybe learn these things. Anyways, whew, thank you guys so much for coming by. I hope maybe I enlightened a few people out there. If you guys have more theories, leave it in the comments below. I don't know of any scientific facts on these. If you do have knowledge of some published works by a scientist that can prove these kinds of things, let me know and be nice about it, because I hadn't found it. But if you guys do know about it, let me know. I'd be really interested. Thank you guys so much for coming by, and I'll definitely see you on the next one.